The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
Hey everybody, welcome to Canary Cry News Talk. It is August 28th, 2019, episode number 154, Supersedes in the Crypto-calypse. My name is Gonz. Basil is on his way to Metamorphosis, and he's going to document, not to participate. Very important distinction that I think people need to understand. The opportunity was again presented to go hang out with Carl Tykrib and the Camp of the Unknown God, and to again document this event that is pretty big. I mean, obviously, it's become pretty mainstream if you think about mainline culture. It's kind of the bridge between a religious event in terms of its new age and sort of modern, postmodern, philosophical, whatever, open forum, whatever's going on. And it's become distinctly, for the elite, too. We talked about Eric Schmidt, who was the head of Google for a long time, being recruited at Burning Man and, watching him interact with the Hive crowd and see if he becomes one with it or if he's, selfish or whatever. I don't know, just crazy stuff like that. We've talked about it, and it's really the cultural tipping point. Or more specifically, what is it? The bleeding edge of culture in terms of changes coming. And we know that to be true because we've seen our modern culture transform because of the types of movements that are reflected in events like Burning Man. So Basil's there. He's going to get some interviews and probably document some stuff. And we will have a Canary Cry radio episode that talks about that, and maybe a news talk thing as well to just, report on all the goings on there. But, the markets, the cryptocurrency markets crashed today, which is fine. It goes up and down. It's just a thing that happens. And I've been focusing on finances, or at least financial technology, on my YouTube channel, where I talked about Israel's mystery, gatekeepers to the new economic world order. And you can watch that if you go there. But it's pretty crazy how there's so many changes taking place and very rapidly. But I wanted to start off, since we started off with talking about Basil going to Burning Man, to Metamorphosis. Why today's cryptocurrency crash could, in part, be blamed on Burning Man. This was published on Fortune, and it basically just outlines the plunge that we saw today, 5.6% fall of Bitcoin and, whatever, the prices. We don't really talk about that on this podcast, so it doesn't really matter. But there's a section here where it says, quote, "It's the week before Labor Day. Half of crypto is at Burning Man, and the other half is sitting on their hands doing nothing." This was according to Jeff Dorman, Chief Investment Officer at Arca. And he said, volumes are low and it takes very little to move markets right now. And you have big futures options expirations coming up at the end of the week. The only definitive thing I can point to is that the move was led by declines in EOS, Ethereum, XRP, BCH, Litecoin, and other large cap tokens that have been out of favor for months. I just don't think there are a lot of investors willing to defend price right now, end quote. And so there you go. I guess half of crypto is at Burning Man, according to this guy. I don't really know what that means, but maybe it means that the new financial, the money changers, the modern money changers, the technocrats, and those who like this kind of technology, maybe are trying to sell off or maybe, change it into dollars so they can use it at Burning Man. I don't know. I don't exactly understand the logic behind that. But anyway, there's our connection, our little bridge into a little bit more crypto news, just because crypto news is really, it's tech news. It's just tech and the financial world coming together. It's called fintech because it's, financial technology. Although I've seen people point out, and this was, I'll attribute it to a commenter. I don't remember who it was, so I apologize out there. But somebody commented recently about fintech, and fin also meaning the end, the finish. And yeah, that's pretty interesting. Fintech. maybe this is the last iteration of this kind of technology. But this is Forbes.com. Alibaba, Tencent, 5 others to receive first Chinese government cryptocurrency. So we've been tracking China on this show, and just technology-wise, but also the economic side of things and the CRISPR stuff as well. So yeah, this is just more changes taking place, but this is interesting because this is different. It's a whole different apparatus from Bitcoin. Similar in the technology, but it's not the same blockchain. It's not the same data structure and network that we're talking about here. But it says China's central bank will launch a state-backed cryptocurrency and issue it to 7 institutions in the coming months, according to a former employee by one of the institutions who is now an independent researcher, Paul Schulte, who worked as global head of financial strategy for China Construction Bank until 2012, says the largest bank in the world, the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, the second largest bank in the world, his former employer, the Bank of China, the Agricultural Bank of China, 2 of China's largest financial technology companies, Alibaba and Tencent, and UnionPay, an association of Chinese banks, will receive the cryptocurrency. A separate source who's involved in the development of the cryptocurrency, dubbed DCEP, confirmed that the 7 institutions would be receiving the new asset when it launches, adding that an 8th institution could also be among the first tier of recipients. The source declined to provide the name of the additional company. Speaking under terms of anonymity, the source, who previously worked for the Chinese government, confirmed that the technology behind the cryptocurrency has been ready since last year, and that the cryptocurrency could launch as soon as November 11th, China's busiest shopping day, known as Singles Day. So, the tailoring it to their controlled market. Interesting here. The plan to use a diverse set of China's trusted institutions to disperse the cryptocurrency is reminiscent of a number of other ideas currently percolating around the world. For instance, and of course this was going to come up, Facebook's planned Libra cryptocurrency will be backed by a basket of currencies, yada, yada, yada. We know about Facebook's Libra token. And it says here, last week, Bank of England Governor Mark Carney, I'll report this because this is relevant here, floated the idea of a new currency backed by a number of central banks to replace the US dollar as the global reserve currency. What sets China's DCEP apart from Libra and Carney's synthetic hegemonic currency, or SHC, according to Schulte, is that while Libra is little more than the early staging, it's a weird sentence, is that while Libra is little more than early stage computer code, and the SHC doesn't appear to have gone much further than Carney's mind, the Chinese cryptocurrency is ready to launch. That was a very challenging sentence. Quote, China is barreling forward on reforms and rolling out the cryptocurrency, says Schulte, who now runs an eponymous bank research firm. What does that mean? Eponymous. EPONYMOUS. I'm going to look it up, and you're going to have to sit through it because I need to know. Eponymous, of a person giving their name to something, identifying after whom which something is named. Okay, so the eponymous hero of the novel. I see, okay. All right, so he continues on here, quote, it will be the first central bank to do so. At the time of the publication, neither the People's Bank of China nor any of the 7 institutions mentioned by Schulte had responded to Forbes' request to confirm or deny his claim. However, the 2-tiered strategy where the central bank creates the currency and others distribute it align with previously unreported statements made by Mu Chengchun, deputy director of the paying division of the People's Bank of China and the new head of China's cryptocurrency research lab. In a speech on August 10th at the China Finance 40 Forum, since revised and posted on the PBOC's WeChat channel, Mu described the central bank's 2-tiered system wherein the bank would create the cryptocurrency and a small group of trusted commercial businesses would, quote, pay the central bank 100% in full to be allowed to distribute it. In addition to preventing regional banks and other organizations from being disintermediated, Mu said the two-tiered system is designed to curb public demand for other cryptographic assets, consolidate China's national currency sovereignty, ensure that the central bank maintains control over monetary policy affecting the currency, increase the likelihood of people using the currency, distribute the risk of having all the authority directly in the hands of the central bank, and encourage competition between the organizations that receive the cryptocurrency. Oh, thank you, state, for issuing the currency that you have chosen to be the one that we will all use and must use. This is, wow, talk about gaming the system, gaming the corporate entities that exist on your land, your soil. This dual delivery system is suitable for our national conditions, says Mu. It can not only use existing resources to mobilize the enthusiasm of commercial banks, but also smoothly improve the acceptance of the digital currency. Well, yeah, again, once the corporations have control of this and they are the ones that are issuing it, people are going to be forced into using it, which is the point here. And this is wholly apart from the more libertarian, sovereign approach to sound money and free, open ability for exchange between, person to person, peer to peer, whatever it might be. This is the total opposite. This is government issued. And in a sense, if you think about it, Libra is kind of doing the same thing. We talked about Libra and its basket of currencies, but also in the data management side of it, the nodes are, people that pay, or companies that pay, I think it was $10 million to host a node that, are verification centers basically that verify the transactions going between peer to peer, or allegedly. But, it's all part of the apparatus. It's easily connectable to other databases and whatnot, even though they say, oh, it's all separate. But in any case, that's the same thing where all these other companies, these companies are being issued Libra, basically. Uber, I think PayPal or MasterCard, Visa, I think all these companies, maybe not PayPal, I don't remember, but all of these big companies, financial companies even, are onboarding and having nodes in the Libra ecosystem, or helping maintain the Libra ecosystem. And so they're kind of this alliance, this financial alliance arc in the digital realm, which is similar to what China's doing, except they're more open about it. They're like, hey, this is the government-issued cryptocurrency, the central bank, actually. The central bank issued cryptocurrency. Here, you guys use it. And you guys do the distributing, even though, we're the ones issuing it. And we're the ones that will ultimately control it. But, wow, I mean, this is pretty big. This is a big move, because this means that, the West, in terms of financial infrastructure, in terms of the economic warfare, I don't know how this affects it, because, I'm just, as with most people, I'm sure they're pretty overwhelmed about the economic war between China and Trump and all this stuff. I try to listen to some stuff and read some stuff and keep up, but half of the stuff you see or easily are accessible is pretty much propaganda, and then the commentary is always slanted as well to whatever alternative viewpoint you happen to land on with the resource. So, that's just the reality of the situation with all types of political news these days. But, I just think that this type of move will either go under the radar and, it'll just be, oh, okay, it happened, and slowly it's going to, take over where no one's paying attention, or it'll be very disruptive, and the West, through, maybe that's what Libra was a preeminent sort of move by the Western controllers, if you will, to get ahead of it, to try to get all the corporations on board and get working. But in the meantime, again, this is wholly different from Bitcoin and the Bitcoin network itself that people around the world maintain. And, there's actually less than 10,000 nodes, official nodes, that are hosting or helping maintain the Bitcoin protocol, which, it's still a lot, but not as many as you think it is. But in any case, that's going to continue to grow, and that fluctuates. It's not a hard set number. So I got one more thing to talk about in terms of crypto, and it's, there's a lot going on here in the traditional sort of big name companies, and that's why I bring it up. I'm not bringing it up because it's just, whoever kind of doing this. This is Telegram. pushes ahead with plans for Gram cryptocurrency. This is according to the New York Times. And it says here, while Facebook's big cryptocurrency plans have hit a wall with regulators, another big social network, Telegram, is charging ahead with its own digital currency. Telegram has told investors that it is planning to send out the first batches of its coin, the Gram, within the next 2 months, according to 3 investors who have spoken with Telegram recently. And, I guess that's pretty much it with this news in terms of the implications. I mean, I'm just saying more companies onboarding the cryptocurrency train and issuing their own tokens and creating their own economic ecosystems. Very interesting times. And it goes hand in hand with other news going on here. This is Financial Times, FT.com. Former JP Morgan metals trader pleads guilty to spoofing charges. A second former JP Morgan Chase precious metals trader has pleaded guilty to criminal charges of spoofing, the Department of Justice said on Tuesday. This was actually last week on the 20th, but I'm bringing it to you here because it just kind of connects to everything that we're talking about here. Christian Truns, who worked at the bank's London, Singapore, and New York offices, admitted placing thousands of orders for gold, silver, and other metals futures contracts that he did not intend to execute, according to the Justice Department. The plea by Mr. Truns, who persecutors said resigned as an executive director at JP Morgan on Tuesday, followed the guilty plea by John Edmonds, another former trader at the bank, last November. Quote, Truns learned to spoof from more senior traders and spoofed with the knowledge and consent of his supervisors, said the Justice Department, which said he was cooperating with its ongoing investigation. The case is the latest in a series of prosecutions brought by U.S. authorities as they have cracked down on spoofing, which involves placing and rapidly canceling orders in order to dupe the market. And this actually goes into the methods that the Rothschilds used during, the French War, I think is the one that everyone brings up and points out, where they had carriers that, got the message to particular individuals before the public knew about it. And they basically, I think one of the Rothschilds went to the booth there at the stock exchange. I don't think it was called the stock. It was called something else at the time in London, and basically, started to sell looking sad. And everybody thought, we lost the war. And they started selling their shares. And then on the other end, Rothschild agents were picking up those shares very cheap. They were the ones buying it. And then by the time everybody found out that, no, actually, we didn't lose the war or the battle, it was too late. The Rothschilds had bought everything for pennies on the dollar, I think, or maybe cent, I don't know. Very cheap, all the stock. And that's when the Rothschilds took over London, is how the mythology goes. And there's a lot of interesting family stories and stuff that surround the Rothschilds' history. And even to today, family members trying to prevent certain stories to be published in certain news agencies and whatnot. Pretty interesting stuff. I don't know. But here we have it. JP Morgan, former metals trader, admitting to manipulating the market, which I think this actually vindicates a lot of people, right? This is definitely one of those I tried to tell you moments.
I tried to tell you. It's chaos. It's a mess. I tried to tell you, but nobody wanted to listen. Do y'all hear me now?
A lot of people saying that with stories like these, but let's move on here. I want to spend the rest of this part of the episode talking about CRISPR.
You can't take the quiz.
CRISPR.
You can't take the quiz.
Cas9.
The advisory.com, the advisory board, published an article, Is it ethical to edit human sperm with CRISPR? Why researchers are focusing on sperm. CRISPR allows scientists to make precise changes in DNA, and reproductive biologists at Weill Cornell are attempting to use the technique to prevent disorders caused by genetic mutations that are passed down from men, including some forms of infertility, Stein writes. The scientists at Weill Cornell currently are focused on targeting a gene called BRCA2. Mutations in BRCA2 can increase a person's risk of breast ovarian, prostate, and other cancers, according to Stein. In theory, editing DNA within human sperm could be safer than editing DNA in embryos, on which CRISPR scientists typically focus, Stein writes. According to Stein, it is easy to inconsistently edit and even miss cells with embryos. But with editing sperm DNA, any changes to the sperm DNA would be present in each cell of the resulting embryo, eliminating the risk that scientists might miss cells. And here's where it gets kind of interesting. June Wang, one of the lab technicians conducting the experiments at Weill Cornell, said, quote, "I know that things can get dangerous and things can get kind of out of hand quickly. But on the other hand, I think that CRISPR can do so much. It has a lot of potential," end quote. But editing DNA in sperm comes with its own challenges, Stein notes, including figuring out how to deliver the CRISPR tool to the DNA. According to Stein, DNA is tightly packed inside each sperm's head. The scientists at Weill Cornell are using a technique called electroportation. Electroportation, like teleportation, but electric. Electroportation, which involves delivering an electric shock to the cells. I mean, talk about, the mind control stuff, the MK Ultra stuff, the experiments that were done, the electroshock therapy type of stuff. But just zap him early. Just get him really early. So early that they're just anyway. Quote, "The hope is that the shock will cause the sperm to kind of loosen up a little bit for just a moment," Wang said. Oh my gosh. I wish Basil was here for this. This is just out of control. I can't do this alone. This article and the nuances of the ridiculous nature of this, it's very weird to do this solo, but keep going here. She explained, quote, "When the cell loosens up, the CRISPR gene editing tool will hopefully get inside. So far, the team's experiments have not been successful," Stein writes. Oh my goodness. A couple other little quotes here from the article. "We're on the cusp of prospective parents controlling the genetics of their offspring." That's according to a bioethicist at the Dalhousie University in Canada and the World Health Organization. And I think this is Professor Hurlbutt. Might be the same one that I've documented before, but Arizona State University, quote, "Once those techniques are developed, it becomes much harder to govern them. If you've done the hard work of developing the recipe, someone else can bake the cake," end quote. And it's going to move forward because, they're going to say, hey, it's going to cure male infertility and, the risk of cancer and stuff. Oh man, we're there, folks. We're at that point. And there's not really much to say about it other than don't zap your progeny, men, and women. Don't convince your man to do this. I don't know. Again, this is just one of those times in history where it's incredibly confusing until we know clearly what goes on. It could get really ugly really quickly, or, everything's fine and people move forward and people are healthy and they cure all the infertilities and cancer is cured and voila. But then all of a sudden, we have a crazy mutated superhero or supervillain situation going on. Anyway, science fiction has become the norm, and we're here to document every step of the way. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. If you want more, we're going to go to the extended report, and I actually don't know what I'm going to talk. I have a couple ideas of what I want to mention in the extended report for all the patrons. Just some thoughts on my mind and a couple news stories that may relate, as well as an article that, a Pathos article that's really pushing neo-pagan rituals. And then maybe a conspiracy theory going around saying that Steve Jobs is still alive, faked his death. So yeah, there you go. Some random stuff there, plus some more thoughts regarding all these things here. Thank you so much for listening again. Appreciate your patience. Appreciate you bearing me solo. Until next time, think outside the cage.
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone.
all dead.